Did you miss your deadline to renew your Medicaid coverage? You can still send your completed annual review form to Healthy Connections Medicaid. You may be assigned to another health plan, but you can ask to come back to First Choice within 60 days of renewed Medicaid eligibility. It's your family. It's your choice. First Choice is the right choice. Renew and choose us. Visit selecthealthofsc.com/renew to learn more.
Coming to Curiosity Stream, go on an adventure 66 million years in the making with Dino Week. From new discoveries about the dinosaurs we thought we knew, to the mind-blowing species still being unearthed, and the controversial discovery that could rewrite history. Did dinosaurs survive longer than imagined? Dino Week on Curiosity Stream. And with monthly, annual, and bundled pricing plans, find the one that works for you at curiositystream.com.
All right, welcome to our Deep Woods Paranormal podcast. We are interviewing April today. She's going to talk about some of the things that got her into the paranormal and about some of her experiences. And she's had some pretty cool ones. So with that, I'm going to introduce April.
Hey guys, my name is April Lothar, and I am going to introduce myself, and we're going to sit there and talk about how I got into the paranormal. So we are going to start off with when I grew up, and the house I lived in. It's a family home, and that's where I started to have my first paranormal experiences. I've had them ever since I was a child. We pretty are sure that our family home was haunted, and it had several entities about there. So that's really what started me from a young child being interested. I had things that would happen during the day and during the night in this home. One most relevant event that I still remember to this day was when I was at home. I was about 13 years old. I sat there and my mom and I were the only ones home. And our hallway it's a pretty straightforward house. So when somebody walked down the hallway, you could see them out of the corner of your eye. And I thought it was my mom who would walk by. She was in the kitchen at the time. When I got up, because I was going to go ask her a question, I walked into her bedroom, because it was right there at my bedroom door and where I thought I saw her walk by into. What I did not see was my mom. What I did see was a shadow on the wall that went across. It's about humanoid size. I could see a top hat, what looked like a cape, and it was there and gone. And I just kind of looked at it and went, okay. And then I went back down the hallway to where my mom was in the kitchen, who was still in the kitchen. And I just asked her, hey, so did you go down the hallway? She goes, no. And then I proceeded to ask her a question and just move about my day. But that was not the only experience I had. This house was about, at that time, 20-some years old, but the land was much older. We grew up on the east coast of Virginia, so as you know, a lot of history in that area. And also where the Civil War was held. Where I lived at in the town, there was several known Civil War skirmishes. So I'm sure that had a lot to do with that. So that's where my history started at, was with this house. I am not the only family member to have had experiences. All of my siblings have had experiences. A lot of my nieces and nephews, and even my own children have had these experiences. The next thing I want to go on to because I've always had this experience with the paranormal. I've always had events that happen to me, and sometimes they're incidental. So one of these times I was actually looking for ghosts. I was with a friend of mine at the time. We had gone to look at train tracks in a small town in North Carolina, because there was a story about children on a railroad track, and if you went down, it was, believe it, a bus accident involved with the train, and that if you went down to these train tracks, you could hear the train incident and possibly even see the children. Well, we had parked at one end of these railroad tracks, and we were going to walk down to the other intersection, because it was pretty straightforward, as railroad tracks tend to be, and we were going to walk down to the intersection where this incident happened. But in between walking between where we parked the car and where this incident was going to happen, we were going to sit there and just see what we see. We were walking along the railroad tracks, and we noticed we heard rustling in the woods. So we're like, okay, all right. Well, we live in the country, so we're used to that kind of thing. Don't think much of it. Kept walking, kept hearing this rustling, but we noticed it kept getting louder, and it was a little bit louder than it tended to be with your normal creatures in the woods. And then we had flashlights with us. We got about halfway down between where we parked at and where we're going. And I would say probably be about a mile in between them. And something steps out. And we kind of swing our flashlights over, and we notice something big, tall, and furry. And when I say it was tall, I mean it was probably, I'd say easily about 7-ish or 8 foot tall. And it just stood there. It looked at us, we looked at it, we looked at each other, and we're like, you know what, we're going to go back to the car. Because that was not something that we were expecting. So that was my incidental Bigfoot incident. And kind of cool, but kind of scary at the same time, because certainly not what I was prepared for. And then I'm going to actually go back a little bit. Sorry if I kind of bounce around. When I was about 17 years old, I moved out of my parents' home and also the haunted family home. And unbeknownst, moved into another haunted house. So I was staying with a friend and her mom and her little boy at the time. And I'd already been warned right when I first moved in that this place might be haunted. But I didn't know if it was or wasn't because I just moved in. So I had several incidents that happened while I was there. One was in broad daylight, again. And it just so happened it was a 2-story home. I had to go up to the second floor. 2 of my good friends, one was I lived with, and the other one's been my best friend for years, were downstairs. Now the upstairs window was open, so I could just easily, lean my head out and, yell to them because they were right below that window. So I went upstairs to go grab something, and there was a connecting door between our room, which I stayed in with my friend, and her mother's room. Well, I went in to go grab something, and I heard what sounded like a doorknob turning. And I turned around, and this was an older house. I don't remember how old it was, but I probably would say it was at least about 70, 80 years old. And the doorknob itself was turning on its own as I watched it. And I just kind of looked at it, and I literally watched this doorknob turn. I looked out and made sure there was I was the only one in the house, y'all. So I looked out the window, and my 2 friends were still down there. And I looked back at the doorknob, and it stopped turning. And I was like, okay, all right, cool. Went downstairs and told my friends. Now, my friend who lived with me, actually both of them believed me. I said, y'all will never believe what just happened. And I told them. They're like, okay. But that was not the only incident that happened in the house. The other one happened when we had no electricity. Don't ask about that. That's a whole nother story. But there was an incident that goes along with this. So I was preparing to go hang out at my friends who lived a few streets over at the time. And I decided to go ahead, hey, I'm going to grab a bath. And we're going to, so I can go on over there. Well, unfortunately it's dark, so I have to light candles and everything like that. And in the room where the bathtub was, there happened to be a panel for the attic. And for this panel at the attic, it stays closed all the time. Nobody goes in the attic. Who does when you have one? So I happened to be sitting there taking a bath, and I heard something above my head. I was like, what the heck is that? I did have a flashlight with me, so I remember grabbing the flashlight, and I knew it came above my head, so I was like immediately pointed above that. And that panel for that attic opening had opened about an inch. And let me tell you, I was like 17 years old at the time, and this was all dark. It was all dark in the house, and you never saw somebody get so dressed so fast in their life, because that was certainly not something I was expecting. I jumped up, got dressed, and ran out of there. Now here's the funny thing. When I sit there and came home the next day, that panel was closed, and nobody else had been home but me. So that's what led me into this injection for this life. Kind of been doing it all my life and have a heavy interest in it ever since I was, like I said, very little. And so that's just a little bit about me.
Awesome, April. I appreciate you talking about your experiences. Have you had any other experiences in your lifetime that would be interesting to hear about?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So I was very young and dumb, as I like to put it, when I was younger. And this is about the same time I had the incident with the Bigfoot story. So the friend I used to hang out with, we used to go and there was these old houses by the old cotton mill. And these houses probably about 80-some years old. So we go and explore them. And also, we were, when I say young and dumb, I step back to because we'd actually play with the Ouija board. And this learned me never to mess with a Ouija board because we did a couple things in my house just to play, train around and sit there and talk to, because there was this one spirit that seemed to follow this particular friend around, and we were interested in trying to contact him. So we did this inside my home, my apartment at the time, and I had a young son who was about a little over a year old, and I knew I'd made a mistake when I was sitting there one night and had invited something in there after we'd done an Ouija board session, probably just the day or so before. I was sitting there, had a couple cats on my bed. My son was in the room next door, and all of a sudden, all 4 cats I had lifted their head up, looked directly at my son's room. 2 seconds later, he starts screaming bloody murder. Yeah, that was fairly frightening as a parent. And also that's where I cut off the Ouija board, because, you never want anything for your child. So I go running in there. I want to make sure everything's okay. And he can't verbalize anything yet because of Ken. He's only 1 year old, so it's really just much babbling. But he kept pointing at a corner of the room, and I could sense there was something there. I had studied Wiccan, but I hadn't really gotten into it yet. But I knew enough to sit there and tell whatever it was to get out of my house. And at that point, I would never touch another Ouija board in my life, because one thing is, you don't want anything to happen to your kids. Oh Jesus, I have so many experiences. It's crazy. Back to the house I lived in. I mean, I'm telling you, there's some crazy experience. I mean, I even had experiences growing up. I can tell you as a kid that when my parents left me home alone, I never, ever, ever, ever went into the back area. And it wasn't a big house, mind you. It was literally you could look down straight the hallway and see the 3-bedroom doors and so forth. But whenever I was home by myself, I would not go in the back area because it just creeped me out. And as much as my parents didn't want to admit something was happening, my dad even told me as I was older, Mom had passed away and we were having adult conversations, that she had a sense of something because she would hear knocking at the windows, and she would hear knocking at their window, which was about ground level, and she'd hear knocking at my window, which is actually about 6 feet up off the ground.
Wow.
Yeah, so, and I would see shadows that would cross my window, including in the daylight. I saw the shadow man again. That's what we called him. That's what our family members have actually called him, because we've had this discussion. We still don't know what the shadow man is, but I can tell you this. There are regular ghosts in there, but there's also, that shadow man seems to be a negative energy. We're not sure if he's demonic or not. We never, believe it or not, could never try and figure it out, or never could figure it out.
Yeah.
But we would, I mean, you could walk down, I actually hated walking down the hallway to the bathroom, which was literally right next to my room, because there was another doorway to the living room, which was an open area. But if you walked by it at night, you felt like somebody was standing there.
Yep. Been there, done that.
Yeah. It's super creepy and makes you run. And I mean, it's not even a long distance, but you just want to get back under those covers and pull them over your head, because as a kid, it's scary.
Oh, right. Yeah.
As an adult, you're just like, okay, I'm going to deal with you later kind of thing. But as a kid, it frightens you. So I can tell you, like, my closet door, I hated it open at night because I could feel like something was in there. I didn't know if it was good or bad. I didn't know if I knew the difference at the time at that age. Now, as I've gotten older and a little bit more sensitive and a little bit more knowledge, I can tell you if there is or isn't. But then it was just kind of hard to tell. I would hear, because I believe because of the proximity to the Civil War battles, there's times I would hear soldiers marching at night.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's actually, that part was kind of cool. At the point I was interested in archaeology, so I started digging up our backyard.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Bet your parents love that.
Oh yeah, they were super thrilled when I started digging up parts of the backyard.
Yeah.
Just because I was trying to find artifacts, and finally they made me put a stop to that. But I would hear this periodically, and quite often when I was trying to sleep. I would hear the drums, and I would hear the marching of the soldiers and stuff like that. So I believe that was from the Civil War period itself.
That's so awesome.
And that is pretty cool. Because when you live on the East Coast, just like anywhere else, it's history. Mm-hmm. So it's really kind of neat. Another experience I did have actually with my son. We went to go visit Fort Monroe, which is Newport News, Virginia, and they're really kind of cool as Fort Monroe is shaped, because it was an actual active base until I think the early 2000s. So now it's more of a tourist thing and what have you. But I took him over there because he loves history, so do I. And the way the fort is you have to go inside, and they look like mounds. Actually, it's kind of almost like an underground feeling. Except it does have windows and stuff. It's kind of cool how it's shaped. But the really cool factor about this is not only the history part of it, it's also, believe it or not, for those who live in Texas, they also held Davy Crockett there for a little bit. Yeah, he was actually a prisoner for a little bit. So in the room that they held Davy Crockett, they had it set up similar, as close to original as possible when he was captive there. But when I was near that room, I could definitely feel a presence in that room. Now, whether it was Davy Crockett or not, that's another story, but there was definitely a presence of, and I could feel like it was a soldier-like presence in that facility, which would make sense because it's been a fort for many, almost 100 years at that point.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was pretty interesting, and even my son said that he had felt something as well, because he was a little bit sensitive. Not as sensitive as Mom is, but he definitely felt something while we were there visiting that as well.
We're going to go ahead and wrap this up. We'll be here all day. April's just like me. I mean, she's had so many experiences in her lifetime. I mean, she could talk for days without basically, stopping her stories. So anyways, she'll probably share some more stories here in the future. Again, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. Thank you guys for listening to the Deep Woods Paranormal Podcast. Thank you, April, for coming on with us.
Absolutely.
We appreciate you being here. And listen later on this week. We're probably going to do another podcast. Thank you guys again. We appreciate your time. And thank you for your support.
Okay, round two. Name something that's not boring.
A laundry? Ooh, a book club. Computer solitaire, huh?
Ah, sorry, we were looking for Chumba Casino. That's right, ChumbaCasino.com has over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details. Okay, round two. Name something that's not boring.
A laundry? Ooh, a book club. Computer solitaire, huh?
Ah, sorry, we were looking for Chumba Casino. That's right, ChumbaCasino.com has over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.